John chapter 18. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went forth with his disciples over the brook Cedron, where there was a garden into which he entered, and his disciples. And Judas also, which betrayed him, knew the place, for Jesus oftentimes resorted there with his disciples. Judas then, having received a band of men and officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, came there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Jesus therefore, knowing all things that should happen to him, went forth and said to them, "Who do you seek?" And they answered him, "Jesus of Nazareth." And Jesus said to them, "I am." Judas also, which betrayed him, stood with them. And as soon as he had said to them, "I am he," they fell backward and fell to the ground. Then he asked them again, "Whom seek ye?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus answered, "I have told you that I am. If you therefore seek me, let these go their way, that the saying might be fulfilled, which he spoke of them which gave me. Of them which he gave me, I have lost none." Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it, and struck the high priest's servant, and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. Then said Jesus to Peter, "Put up your sword into your sheath. The cup which my Father has given me to drink, shall I not drink it?" Then the band and the captains and officers of the Jews took Jesus and bound him, and led him away to Annas first, for he was father-in-law to Caiaphas, which was the high priest that same year. Now Caiaphas was he which gave counsel to the Jews, that it was necessary that one man should die for the people. And Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. The disciple was known unto the high priest, and went in with Jesus into the palace of the high priest. But Peter stood at the door outside. Then went that other disciple, which was known unto the high priest, and spoke unto her that kept the door, and brought in Peter. Then said the little girl that kept the door unto Peter, "Are not also you one of this man's disciples?" And he said, "I am not." And the servants and the officers stood there, who had made a fire with coals, for it was cold, and they warmed themselves. And Peter stood with them and warmed himself. The high priest then asked Jesus of his disciples and of his doctrine. Jesus answered him, "I spoke openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple, where the Jews always resort, and in secret I have said nothing. Why do you ask me? Ask them which heard me. What I've said to them, behold, they know what I've said." And when he had thus spoken, one of the officers which stood by struck Jesus with the palm of his hand, saying, "Do you speak to the high priest this way?" Jesus answered him, "If I've spoken evil, bear witness of the evil. But if good, why do you strike me?" Now Annas had sent him first bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. And Simon Peter stood and warmed himself. And they said therefore unto him, "Are you not also one of his disciples?" And he denied it, and said, "I am not." One of the servants of the high priest, being his family, whom Peter cut off his ear, said, "Did I not see you in the garden with him?" Peter then denied again, and immediately the rooster crowed. Then they led Jesus to Caiaphas unto the hall of judgment. It was early, and they themselves did not go into the judgment hall, or else they should be defiled, that they might be able to eat the Passover. Pilate then went out unto them, and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered and said to him, "If he were not a criminal, we would not have delivered him to you." Then said Pilate to them, "You take him, and judge him according to your law." The Jews therefore said to him, "It's not lawful for us to put any man to death," that the saying of Jesus might be fulfilled which he spoke, signifying what death he would die. Then Pilate entered into the judgment hall again, and called Jesus, and said to him, "Are you the King of the Jews?" And Jesus answered him, "Do you say this thing of yourself, or did others tell it to you?" Pilate answered, "Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you unto me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight, that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now is my kingdom not from here." God bless you. Pilate therefore said to him, "Are you a king then?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king, and for this cause I was born. For this cause I came into this world, that I should bear witness unto the truth. Everyone that is of the truth hears my voice." Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" And when he had said this, he went out again unto the Jews, and said to them, "I find no fault at all in him. But you have a custom, that I should release unto you one at the Passover. Do you desire therefore that I release unto you the King of the Jews?" They cried all again, "Not this man, but Barabbas." Now Barabbas was a robber. Then Pilate therefore took Jesus and beat him. And the soldiers made a crown of thorns and put it on his head. And they put on him a purple robe and said, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they struck him with their hands. Pilate therefore went forth again and said to them, "Behold, I bring him forth to you, that you may know that I find no fault in him." Then came Jesus forth, wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. And Pilate said to them, "Look at the man." When the chief priests, therefore, and the officers saw him, they cried out, saying, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" And Pilate said to them, "You take him and crucify him, for I find no fault in him." The Jews answered him, "We have a law, and by our law he ought to die, because he has made himself the Son of God." When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he was terrified, and went again into the judgment hall, and said to Jesus, "From where are you?" But Jesus gave him no answer. Then said Pilate to him, "Do you not speak to me? Do you not know that I have power to crucify you, and have power to release you?" Jesus answered, "You could have no power at all against me, except it had been given to you from above. Therefore, he that has delivered me to you has the greater sin." And from now on, Pilate sought to release him. But the Jews cried out, saying, "If you let this man go, you are not Caesar's friend. For whoever makes himself a king speaks against Caesar." When Pilate therefore heard this saying, he brought Jesus forth, and sat down in the judgment seat, in a place that is called the Pavement, but in Hebrew, Gabbatha. And it was the preparation of the Passover. And about the 6th hour, he said to the Jews, "Look on your king." But they cried out, "Away with him! Away with him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "Shall I crucify your king?" The chief priests answered, "We have no king but Caesar." Then they delivered him therefore unto them to be crucified. And they took Jesus and led him away. And he, carrying his cross, went forth into the place called the place of a skull, which is called in Hebrew Golgotha, where they crucified him, and two others with him on either side, and Jesus in the middle. And Pilate wrote the title and put it on the cross, and the writing was, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. This title then read many of the Jews, for the place where Jesus was crucified was close to the city, and it was written in Hebrew and Greek and Latin. And then said the chief priest to the Jews, to Pilate, "Do not write, the King of the Jews, but that he said, I am the King of the Jews." And Pilate answered, "What I have written, I have written." Then the soldiers, when they crucified Jesus, took his clothing and made 4 parts, to every soldier a part, and also his coat. Now his coat was without seam, woven from the top throughout. Then they said therefore among themselves, "Let us not tarry, but cast lots for it, whose it shall be, that the scripture might be fulfilled, which says, They parted my clothing among themselves, and for my coat they did cast lots. These things therefore the soldiers did. Now there stood by the cross of Jesus his mother, and his mother's sister, and Mary the wife of Cleophas, and Mary Magdalene. And when Jesus therefore saw his mother, and the disciple standing by, whom he loved, he said to his mother, "Woman, look on your son." And then he said to the disciple, "Look on your mother." And from that hour the disciple took her into her own house. After this, Jesus, knowing that all things were now accomplished, that the scripture might be fulfilled, said, "I thirst." Now there was set a vessel full of vinegar, and they filled a sponge with vinegar, and put it upon hyssop, and put it to his mouth. When Jesus therefore had received the vinegar, he said, "It is finished." And he bowed his head, and gave up the spirit. The Jews therefore, because it was the preparation day, that the body should not remain upon the cross on the Sabbath day, for the Sabbath day was a high day, begged Pilate that their legs might be broken, and that they might be taken away. And then came the soldiers, and broke the legs of the first, and of the other which was crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus, they saw that he was dead already, and they did not break his legs. But one of the soldiers with a spear pierced his side, and right away there came out blood and water. And he that saw it testified, and his record is true. And he knows what he says is true, that you might believe. For these things were done, that the scripture should be fulfilled. A bone of his shall not be broken. And again another scripture says, they shall look on him whom they have pierced. And after these things, Joseph of Arimathea, being a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for fear of the Jews, begged Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus. And Pilate allowed him. And he came therefore and took the body of Jesus. And there was also Nicodemus, which first came to Jesus at night, and brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 100-pound weight. Then they took the body of Jesus, and wound him in linen clothes, with the spices, as the manner of the Jews is to bury. Now in the place where he was crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb, wherein was never a man laid. And there they did lay Jesus, because the Jews' preparation day for the tomb was close at hand. The first day of the week came Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, onto the tomb, and saw the stone taken away from the tomb. Then she ran and came to Simon Peter and to the other disciple, whom Jesus loved, and said to them, "They've taken away the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they've laid him." Peter therefore went forth, and that other disciple, and came to the tomb. So they ran both together. The other disciple did outrun Peter, and came first to the tomb, and he, stooping down and looking in, saw the linen clothes lying, yet he did not go in. Then came Simon Peter following him, and went into the tomb, and saw the linen clothes, and the napkin that was about his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but wrapped together in a place by itself. Then went in also the other disciple, which came first to the tomb, and he saw and believed. For as yet they did not know the scripture, that he must rise again from the dead. Then the disciples went away again unto their own house. But Mary stood outside the tomb, weeping. And as she wept, she stooped down and looked into the tomb, and saw two angels in white sitting, the one at the head, the other at the feet, where the body of Jesus had laid. And they said to her, "Woman, why are you crying?" And she said to them, "Because they've taken away my Lord, and I don't know where they've laid him." And when she had said this, she turned herself back, and saw Jesus standing, and did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you crying? What are you searching for?" She, supposing him to be the gardener, said to him, "Sir, if you've taken him from here, tell me where you've laid him, and I will take him away." Jesus said to her, "Mary." And she turned herself and said to him, "Rabboni." And he said to her, "Do not touch me. I've not yet ascended to my Father, but go to my brother and say to him, I ascend to my Father and your Father, and to my God and your God." Press the power off button.
I'm done. I'm going to the car.
Mary Magdalene came and told the disciples that she had